Starting off under the water with the Sea Devils. This team was just regular people doing extraordinary things. They appeared in Showcase issue 27 in 1960, but got their own series the next year. The group was made of 4 people: Dane Dorrance, Judy Walton, Judy's younger brother Nicky Walton, and their friend Biff Bailey. The group primarily operated underwater since their job was deep sea diving and treasure hunting. They spent a lot of time living every kid's dream. They fought sea monsters and discovered underwater kingdoms. If I was guaranteed to never drown, I would join this team so quick. The group also fought for the sea on land as environmentalists. They are suggested to maybe be a bit extreme at times with their methods in the New 52 reboot, but they remain allies to Aquaman. The Displaced Paranormals, or DP7, got their powers from the infamous White Event. You could probably guess this from the team name, but there are 7 of them. White Events create new, extremely powerful heroes, and on this particular team, we have a man that can now project an intangible version of himself, a strong man, a speedster, a woman whom whoever she touches would just lose all friction and slide around, a boy who produced acid from his skin, a mom that can energize and heal anyone she touched, and a teacher that could paralyze you with the poison his body produces. The team grew and shrank over time and has had about 40 appearances total. Born out of an atomic fallout, the heroes of Lawler, they are a team of 5 heroes. Their parents lived a bit too close to the site of an atomic fallout, and their genes were altered, resulting in their children all being born with superpowers. The kids were sent away from their home planet and decided to come to Earth. Dr. Marden King lied to the young heroes, making them think that the Legion of Superheroes were criminals. The reason? So Doc could avenge his brother's death. When a random group of space people started to attack the Legion, they also thought the heroes of Lawler were bad guys. They fought, but soon realized they were both fighting with good intentions and became friends instead. The powers of each team member were as follows: Beast Boy, turning into any animal, not to be confused though with the more popular Beast Boy, they're different. Gas Girl, she can change her body into any gas. Evolvo Lad, he can make his body go to any point in human evolution, so he can become like an ape or the kind of man humanity can't even imagine yet. Life Last can create living creatures from inanimate objects. And finally, Duplicate Boy, he can duplicate any hero's superpowers. Eventually the team makes it back to their home planet and even gained a new member, Splitter, or Arm Fall Off Boy. Up next, Operation Lightning Storm, a team that shockingly does not include Thor. It did include one of my favorite superheroes, Sleepwalker, and that is how I know about this obscure team that only has about 16 appearances. The team was led by Miss Marvel. After the events of Civil War, Tony Stark had requested that Carol lead the Mighty Avengers, to which she agreed to do, but only if she got a second team too. This team's purpose was to take out villains before they became an Avengers level threat. The team was a covert strike team that could access any S.H.I.E.L.D. resource they wanted, even though they weren't technically part of the S.H.I.E.L.D. official lineup. Members of the team included Carol Danvers as the leader, Machine Man, Sleepwalker, Agent Sum, Agent Locke, Agent Baines, and Doc Farrell. Notable missions include saving a bunch of kidnapped people in Miss Marvel Volume 2 issue 20, and then erasing a colony of Brood in issue 24. The reason this team has very limited appearances is because they captured an imposter Miss Marvel, then upon discovery of being an imposter, she hit self-destruct and took the team's base down with her. Doc Farrell and Agent Baines didn't make it. G-Force is up next, and I do not mean the unit of acceleration. I am instead referring to the 2009 feature film with its central cast being super intelligent spy guinea pigs. Here's the thing, I thought that we were all locked into G-Force. I thought everyone was also living with the knowledge that this wackadoodle movie exists. Imagine my shock and surprise upon being told that this was obscure media. Please, if you knew about G-Force before now, drop that in the comments section. I should do a poll or something. The official plot synopsis for this film, like the one on IMDb, is a specially trained squad of guinea pigs is dispatched to stop a diabolical billionaire from taking over the world. The FBI had a secret division responsible for training and then dispatching the rodents. Shockingly, the FBI decided that spy rodents wasn't a necessity, so they went to shut it down, causing the small spies to begin their hero's journey. Another reason that I thought everyone was well aware of this movie was because it had a star-studded cast. Some of the people in this movie had no business being in a super guinea pig movie. Bill Nye, Will Arnett, Zach Galifianakis, Nicolas Cage, Sam Rockwell, Jon Favreau, Penelope Cruz, Steve Buscemi, and Tracy Morgan all lent their face or voice to the Disney flick. This was also the first live-action Disney film released in Disney Digital 3D that wasn't a concert film, so G-Force literally made history. Ever since discovering another animal team, team, the Power Pachyderms. They have crossed my mind at least once a week because it was so wild. So they were a team of super elephants. Now here's the thing, it's ridiculous, but that was the point. It was a parody comic of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Later, it was a parody of the X-Men and just general Marvel heroes. The OG team name was the Adult Thermonuclear Samurai Elephants. Iconic. However, not everything went to plan. There were some significant delays, and so Marvel was forced to change the name and said they were now a parody of the X-Men. Either way, the team of four first appeared in Power Pachyderms issue 1 in 1989, and that's it. That's all we ever got. The issue itself was a gem. We learned the elephants were supercharged when their train car, bound for the zoo, was unhooked from the train by a monkey, and they happened to jump track to one that leads to a nuclear test zone. Then there's a big explosion that exposes the elephants to radiation, turning them into super elephants. They rejoin the circus briefly before heading off on their own, only to come back together to fight Clarinetto, former head of the Brotherhood of Musicians. The super elephants fight and defeat Clarinetto and his band of celebrity ninja impersonators. It was truly a piece of art. Wetworks, originally called Team 7, was a team published by Image Comics, which was later DC. Wetworks likely got its name from the actual term, meaning work involving the targeted elimination of an individual, so you can probably guess the team's vibe. If you guessed a covert operations team in the Wildstorm universe, then you get a gold star. Jackson Dane is team leader. Dane's team was sent out to raid a cave, but the cave was already raided when they got there. Nothing left except tubes filled with a mysterious gold liquid. Important to note, the team had a lot of remote-controlled weapons on them that happened to start a countdown to detonate when they were inside. So yeah, everything goes so wrong so fast. The tubes get broken, the liquid gets on the team and surrounds them, and then the explosives go off. But it turns out the liquid acted like protective armor because it was Sims. Adding a Sim to someone automatically makes them cooler, but you know what makes them even cooler than that? When they also fight vampires. Where did that come from? I don't know, we've lost the plot a little bit, but I'm not mad about it. Wetworks has been running across Eastern Europe, single-handedly preventing a Twilight remake. They lost members along the way, even temporarily stopped their mission, but they regrouped and were called to Utah, of all places. Turns out someone was trying to make a Daemonite vampire hybrid. In the ensuing fight, the Sims all mutated and the Wetworks team started getting new powers and saved the day. Now you've heard of the Avengers, but turns out they weren't the first Avengers team Nick Fury created. Avengers 1959 were the OGs, and the team was all villains. Earth's mightiest heroes were, I guess, technically named after Earth's biggest headaches. Somehow I feel betrayed by this info, and I don't really have any personal stake in this game. The 1959 Avengers team was created by Nick Fury at the order of President Eisenhower. Team Constants include Nick Fury as leader, Sabretooth, Kraven the Hunter, Dominic Fortune, Namora, Bloodstone, and Silver Sable. This Avengers team is super interesting to me because, well, I love the vintage aesthetic, but also, Nick, what are you doing? Quite a few of the people on this team are certified menaces to society. I guess they were right for the missions they went on, which was like defeating Red Skull and his Yahtzee with an N Captain America, but Sabretooth? The team's efforts were pretty much focused on defeating various bad guys that belonged to the Yahtzees. Because the Avengers did so much good defeating all those bad guys, Nick pardoned all the past crimes of the team members. Controversial choice, but okay. The team operated in the 1950s, but debuted in 2011. Dynamic duo Blue Falcon and Dynomutt of the Scooby-Doo extended universe are criminally underrated. They are literally just a guy and his dog out to save the world. Blue Falcon is a parody of Batman, specifically inspired by Adam West's. He doesn't have any superpowers, but he's so good at what he does, you would never need to know that. Blue Falcon and Dynomutt have appeared in their feature film, Scooby-Doo Mask of the Blue Falcon, among other Scooby-Doo media, including my favorite version in Scooby-Doo Mystery Incorporated. In that show, Blue Falcon was Radley Crown, a security guard at Quest Labs with a taste for adventure, love for birds, and his trusty security dog sidekick Reggie. One day a villain broke in and Reggie was fatally wounded. Mr. Crown fought for his dog, and that is how he became the literal crime-stopping machine, Dynomutt. Now, he can create anything from his mechanical body with absolutely no limits. Blue Falcon is this huge, incredibly strong, intelligent man, bit rough around the edges, but you don't really mind. He's got all the gadgets, including a Falcon car and a bird-themed utility belt. The duo has taken on at least 30 guys at once without even breaking a sweat. And finally, the challengers of the unknown are very interesting to me. They were a bunch of normal guys with above-average jobs on a plane that were flying to go be guests on a radio show called Heroes. We had a master of skin diving, a circus daredevil, an Olympic wrestling champion, and a trained jet pilot and war hero. Quite the mix of people. Of course, the plane went down, but the Fab Four survived. survived. After the crash, they all have that like, wow, we almost passed on moment, and decided that they should challenge the unknown together, live life to the fullest. Challenging the unknown is really what these guys did. They were a for-hire service, so they got hired once to open Pandora's box. Pandora's box is something you famously should not open. However, they were offered $1 million, so I get it. These guys start kind of taking on jobs that are too out there for others to handle or just too hard. They worked with the Pentagon of all places. They had created their home base in a mountain. The personification of evil actually came by and blew that up. At a certain point, the team just really did not catch a break. Eventually, there are new team members, a games designer, physicist, NASCAR driver, commercial pilot. What I love about this DC team are the people on the team are people. They had semi-regular jobs and just decided to start conquering challenges despite not receiving any superpowers.
Number 10. Alpha Flight. This is for sure the least obscure entry on the list, as I choose to talk about them constantly, and Alpha Flight has been somewhat reinvented in the last few years and changed into an international space force being led by Captain Marvel, but we are talking about the original team. First appearing in X-Men number 120, Alpha Flight was Canada's answer to the Avengers, with members with unique abilities from all over Canada. Unlike most super teams who are always working together, Alpha Flight operated in more of a Mission Impossible James Bond kind of style, by choosing heroes from their roster and assigning each of them to specific missions that they would handle as individuals and pairs, only coming together as a full team in the case of extreme threats. Despite multiple tries by Marvel to give the team their own ongoing series, Alpha Flight has never quite caught on in the States. Perhaps they are just too specifically Canadian for a readership who tends to prefer American-centric stories, or maybe they just haven't been given the right push into the mainstream. Either way, Alpha Flight remains a team that not a huge amount of readers have heard of, and even fewer have actually read. Although, they did appear in one episode of the classic X-Men cartoon. Small victories. Number 9. ForceWorks. When it was determined that the Avengers' ever-expanding roster should be better divided up across the United States, rather than everyone working out of New York, the West Coast Avengers were formed. This experiment didn't end up working out, and the team was soon disbanded. In a typically Tony Stark move, Tony Stark decided that he should instead fund and create his own superhero team to help protect the West Coast. The resulting team was ForceWorks. The original team consisted of Iron Man, Spider-Woman, Wonder Man, and US Agent, with Scarlet Witch being chosen as the team leader. The team operated for a while, taking on threats like the Mandarin and Kang the Conqueror, but the team was plagued with internal issues. Despite Scarlet Witch being the team leader, Iron Man was constantly undermining her authority and forcing the team to carry out his personal vendettas. This attitude culminated in him forcing the team to brutally kidnap Hawkeye, which got him booted from the team. ForceWorks carried on without him for a while, but eventually decided to disband, although they were briefly brought back under the leadership of Maria Hill in order to fight the Robot Revolution. ForceWorks is an obscure offshoot of the already relatively obscure West Coast Avengers, however they did serve as the supporting cast for Iron Man's 90s animated series. Number 8. The Outlaws. Not to be confused with the team from DC Comics, Marvel's Outlaws are a group of heroes, all with a criminal past, who are led by Spider-Man and Silver Sable. The group formed when photographic evidence came out implicating Spider-Man in a robbery. Wanting to prove the innocence of the man who had helped them reform, Prowler, Rocket Racer, Will-O-the-Wisp, Paladin, and Sandman all began searching for evidence that would prove the webbed wall crawler's innocence. They discovered that Spidey was actually working for Silver Sable, and that what he had stolen was actually incriminating evidence against a member of the Maggia crime family. Impressed with the group's skills, Silver Sable brought them on as freelancers, and the team would occasionally come together, usually whenever Spider-Man was being framed or something and needed support from outside of the Avengers. Although some of the various members of the team are relatively well-known characters, their team isn't well-known, as they come together so rarely and haven't teamed up since 1991. Number 7. Psyforce. When a telepathic CIA agent named Emmett Proudhawk had a vision about 5 young people with psychic abilities being protected by a hawk, he decided to track down the people in his vision and bring them together to become Psyforce. He got most of them together but was killed by a Russian operative. The 5 psychic youths discovered that when they all touched Proudhawk's mystic medallion, it summoned a creature called the Psyhawk, who would help them defeat their enemies. You know, like Captain Planet. The youths worked together to defeat an evil Russian paranormal named Rodstov, and they were chased by members of the CIA, the KGB, and a shadowy organization called the Medusa Web, who eventually brought the kids on as freelance agents. Although they had their own 32-issue series, the fact that this Marvel team has no recognizable superheroes and is based in Earth 148,611 rather than the mainstream Earth 616 universe keeps them pretty obscure. Number 6. Force of July. The first DC entry on this list, Force of July were an Americana-themed group who often found themselves at odds with the Outsiders. The force answered to the American Security Agency and were tasked with eliminating anyone whose activities were deemed to be subversive to America's interests by any means necessary. Some of the team's members include Lady Liberty, Silent Majority, Sparkler, Mayflower, and their leader, Major Victory. Although they aren't technically villains, their fanatic patriotism prevented them from seeing that they were being manipulated by their handler, who was using them to help his scheme to create a satellite called Project Orwell that would have been used to spy on people using their televisions. This plot was stopped by the Outsiders, and the Force of July later found themselves fighting against the Suicide Squad, who killed Sparkler and Mayflower. The remaining members ended up joining the squad but did not last long on the team's roster. Number 5, the Inferior Five. Coming from Earth 12 in the DC multiverse, this team are the nepo babies of a team of heroes called the Freedom Brigade. When the Freedom Brigade retired, the heroes encouraged their children to follow in their footsteps, and they started a team dedicated to protecting the people of Megaopolis. Known as the Fearsome Five, the members of this team, Awkward Man, Blimp, Dumb Bunny, and Whitefeather, have somewhat useless and conflicting powers, and although they usually manage to save the day, it is usually a result of dumb luck rather than skill. Their lameness led to the people of Megalopolis calling their champions the Inferior Five, which the team eventually decided to adopt as their official name. In Crisis on Infinite Earths, their world was destroyed, and as a result they were sent to comic book limbo, which is a realm similar to the Island of Misfit Toys, where characters who are written out of continuity remain until they're brought back into continuity. Number 4, the League of Losers. In the Marvel Universe of Earth 6215, a time-traveling villain from the future named Kronoke used his knowledge of the past to travel back in time to the present with an army and kill all of Earth's mightiest heroes. Fortunately, the records he was working off of did not include any reference to these C-list Marvel characters because none of them had ever done anything that was worthy of note. Darkhawk, Speedball, Dagger, Terror, X-23, Gravity, and Sleepwalker were thus able to take on Kronoke and travel back to before the villain had stolen his time travel tech and stop him. Although this stranded the team in the future, it also created a divergent timeline known as Earth 2992, where the villain's scheme was never an issue. Wow, time travel can be such a pain to explain. Number 3, Section 8. One of the strangest teams in the DC universe, Section 8 is a group of what I will very generously call heroes who operate out of Gotham City. Each member of the team is more bizarre than the last, so buckle up. Shakes is a schizophrenic with a speech impediment. Jean de Baton is a stereotypical Frenchman who hits people with a baton. Defenestrator is a massive former Arkham inmate who carries around a window to smash over his enemies' heads. Flemgem spits massive amounts of snot at his enemies in order to blind them. Bueno Excelente is just some guy who sneaks up on his enemies and then essays them. Dog Welder is a crazy person who welds dogs to people's faces, and Friendly Fire is a hero who can shoot energy beams but is incapable of hitting anything he aims at, usually hitting his teammates instead. They are led by Sixpack, an alcoholic who pees himself and then attacks people with a beer bottle. Shockingly, this team has not gotten a big budget movie, and all of them were killed after an encounter with the mini-angled ones, with the exception of Sixpack, who suddenly manifested reality-warping powers to defeat the villains and save the world. Number 2, the Neo Knights. After having great success publishing comic books based on Hasbro's line of G.I. Joe toys, the two companies collaborated again to create the series that would give much-needed backstory for Hasbro's new line of toys, the Transformers. A lot of the Transformers mythology came from these comics, but due to the rights of certain characters remaining with the comic book company, not all of the elements were brought over for the television series or subsequent films. One of these elements is the superhero team, the Neo Knights. When the Autobots returned to space, leaving no one to protect their longtime ally, GB Blackrock, he decided to bring together a team of superpowered humans in order to fight any Decepticons that caused trouble on Earth. The members are Circuit Breaker, a woman who was paralyzed in an encounter with the Transformers and has developed a special suit that allows her to walk as well as fly and shoot repulsor beams. Also on the team are Thunder Punch, a man who can enlarge his feet and hands and punch with heightened strength, Rapture, a woman who can cause any sentient being to shut down and enter an elaborate fantasy, and Dynamo, who could channel the planet's latent energies. They are extremely obscure, only showing up in the original US and UK Transformers comics, and due to Hasbro having the rights for most of the Transformers and Marvel owning the rights to this team, they are likely to remain so for quite some time. Number 1, the Forgotten Heroes. They may have more appearances than some of the other teams on this list, and some of their members are relatively well known, but with a name like the Forgotten Heroes, how could they not end up on the top spot for this list? The team consists of a bunch of DC heroes who all stumbled upon ancient golden pyramids. When the heroes tried to report what they had found, the US government disavowed them and ruined each of their reputations to discredit them. Immortal Man brought all the heroes together and filled them in that the pyramids were part of a scheme by Vandal Savage to kill Superman. They formed a team together and teamed up with the Man of Steel to stop Vandal's plot. The team lives up to its name with members like Atomic Knight, Ballistic Congo Bill, Cave Carson, Dolphin, The Ray, Vigilante and Resurrection Man, as well as a few slightly more well-known heroes such as Rip Hunter, Animal Man, and Rick Flag.
The series One Star Squadron debuted in 2022. It featured unpopular heroes combining their limited star power to create heroes for you. It's like a mix between Uber, Cameo, and 911. For these C-list heroes, the C stands for capitalism. People use the Heroes for You app for on-demand hero assistance. Situations you may need a hero for include, but are not limited to, alien attacks, transporting sensitive information, birthdays, or getting your kitty out of a tree. No job is too big or small, they will answer the call. I love this idea. Trust and believe if I were a D or C-list superhero, I would be on here. I also think this idea is so clever from the writer's point of view. They were able to bring back a bunch of characters, so many fun characters all at once. The app and agency was led by Red Tornado, but other heroes you could request were the Heckler. I would request him. His power is literally just being annoying. Just send him to that person you mildly dislike. Takes care of it. Let me know down below who you would sick the Heckler on. Minuteman is available. He has a bunch of powers, but only for 1 minute at a time. There is Flying Fox, who is known for magic things like invisibility and illusions, good for a birthday. There are a bunch more heroes too. That's just a taste of all the options. I just love this idea. Literally all these heroes just deserve better. I have a soft spot for silly superheroes. What can I say? I like to laugh as much as I like the serious stuff. Section 8 made me giggle, specifically this one guy on the superhero team. His name is Defenestrator. Defenestrator from now on will be Mr. D. He literally just goes around with a window and smashes it over villains' heads. In all fairness, defenestration is literally the act of throwing someone out a window. I'm obsessed. Mr. D started out a villain but was recruited to the Hero Squad Section 8 by Hero 6-Pack. The team is made up of just wacky heroes with wacky names. We have Dog Welder. He welds dogs. I'm being so serious. There's Bueno Excelente. That is literally good excellent in Spanish. Phlegm Gem. He has blinding phlegm. Gross. Friendly Fire. He is the most traditional. He shoots energy blasts. And then there is Jean de Baton Baton. He fights with, take a guess, a baton, and he is French. The entire thing is so camp and also a tiny bit problematic, which is probably why it hasn't picked up much steam. The Metal Men were created by Dr. William Magnus in the New Earth DC universe. The team is an interesting idea, metals with human-like bodies and the capacity to form thoughts and personalities. Dr. William created the Metal Men using his invention, the responsometer. It's a microcomputer that can give metal life. The Metal Men are made up of 5 male metals, gold, tin, mercury, lead, and iron, and 1 female metal, platinum. The team is such a specific brand of hero, so they fought a specific brand of villain too, monsters that appeared due to odd scientific research. The team has fought alongside Batman. Initially they were arrested by Batman because they were framed for something, but their names were cleared eventually. After getting their names cleared, they took down a bunch of evil robots together. The nice thing about the metal heroes is they can literally be remade whenever, as long as Dr. William has his microcomputer and a bit of the metal heroes can be brought back. The metals can also be combined to create the formidable foe alloy. Here's the thing, I spend time on the internet, clearly, and I'm also just a girl, so I will see these videos of people personifying different inanimate things like apps and countries and cars. So I think now is really the time to push the Metal Men. Inanimate objects given life are in right now, trust me. The Challengers of the Unknown have an interesting origin story. They were a bunch of guys on a plane that were flying to go be guests on a radio show called Heroes, later changed to a TV show. They were above average guys though. One was considered a master of skin diving, another a daredevil working in the circus, an Olympic wrestling champion, and trained jet pilot and war hero. Just quite a mix of people. Of course, the plane they were in went down and the Fab Four of course survived. After the crash, they all have that wow, we almost died moment, and they decided that they are all living on borrowed time and that they should challenge the unknown together. Challenging the unknown really is what these guys did. They were also a for-hire service too. They got hired to open Pandora's box. Pandora's box is something you famously should not open. However, They were offered $1 million, not saying I would do it, but I get it. These guys start kind of taking on jobs that are too out there for others or too hard. They worked with the Pentagon of all places. One member loses their sight along the way, so a different member gives them an eyeball. They go through it. They had created their home base in a mountain. The personification of evil comes by and blows it up. At a certain point, the team really just can't catch a break. Eventually, there are new team members, a games designer, a physicist, a NASCAR driver, and a commercial pilot. What I think is cool about this particular DC team are the people on the team are just people. They have semi-regular jobs and just decided to start conquering challenges despite not receiving any superpowers. The Sea Devils, like the Challengers and Batman, were just regular people doing extraordinary things. They appeared in Showcase issue 27 in 1960 but got their own series the next year. The group was made of 4 people. Dane Dorrance was the leader. The other members were his girlfriend Judy Walton, Judy's younger brother Nicky Walton, and friend Biff Bailey. The group spent most of their time underwater, of course. They spent a lot of time living every ocean-obsessed kid's dream. They fought sea monsters and discovered underwater kingdoms. Like truly, if I was guaranteed to never drown, I would join this crew so fast. Spending so much time with aquatic life and fighting in the sea, the group also fought for the sea on land. They are environmentalists and are suggested to maybe be a bit extreme at times with their methods in the New 52 reboot, but they remain allies to Aquaman. The duality of the universe being manifested in human form has been done so many times, and yet it always hits. Hawk and Dove are another version of this. They were inspired by the political climate of the 1960s, with the characters debuting in 1968. People that were more in favor of war were often referred to as hawks, and the dove is commonly a symbol of peace. So from that, we get the aggressive hawk and the level-headed dove. In the DC universe, the Lords of Chaos and Order decided to bestow powers on a set of brothers, Hank and Don Hall, making them effectively War and Peace. They wore matching outfits, one was red and the other blue. The pair worked well together as Hawk often acted without thinking and Dove would think without action. Hawk was shoot first, ask questions later kind of vibe, whereas Dove made sure to provide the compassion and solutions that didn't require physical conflict. A perfect balance that was unfortunately thrown out of balance when Dawn passed on during the Crisis on Infinite Earths fiasco. It would be disastrous if just War was out here on their own, so a replacement had to be found, and that was Dawn Granger. The Lords chose her because she was level-headed and willing to find compromise and see reason and other perfect peaceful qualities. After the loss of his brother, naturally Hawk took some time getting used to his new counterpart, but eventually accepted her. The characters of Hawk and Dove have plenty of potential, and yet their solo series are never that long. They got some credit on the screen. They made their animated debut in Justice League Unlimited in 2004 episode, then made their live-action debut in 2018's Titans. I am about to put up missing posters for this team because honestly, where did you come from? Where did you go? Justicia is the hero team of Mexico. Justicia is Spanish for justice. The Justice League of Mexico, basically. They first appeared in Suicide Squad, Most Wanted, El Diablo, and Amanda Waller 5. They were in 6 too, but then goodbye, I guess. The team is led by El Dorado. He's almost a Mexican version of Superman. He can fly and he's really buff. He is also capable of teleporting and minor telepathy. He also really looks like Miguel from Into the Spider-Verse. Anyway, there are 3 other members on the team. Akrara, a skilled martial artist and acrobat that wears a Mayan artifact that gives her teleportation abilities. Then we have El Muerto, an undead hero, which makes him hard to hurt the way you might hurt someone who's alive. And finally, we have E-Man. He wears a suit of armor that gives him superior strength. There are some connections between this team and the Justice League. El Muerto used to idolize Superman, and E-Man received a scholarship from Wayne Enterprises. E-Man and Batman also share similar parent trauma. Each individual hero has had a handful of appearances, it's just the team that hasn't come up much. I think they are neat and should get more chances to show off together. So now we have shed some light on the MIA superhero team for Mexico, now we are heading to look at the main team for Japan. Big science action. The founding members were Boss Bozazuko, he had a flaming head and a bike. Cosmo Racer was an alien android that required specific crystals to power his interstellar traveling. Goriko is a projection that comes from the mind of a young Japanese girl that is currently existing in a sensory deprivation tank. Hammer Suit Zero X is a monster armor made of sturdy metal and has drills for weapons. Junior Waveman is the Japanese version of the Sea Devils mentioned earlier, but this time there are 8 people. The solar physicist known as Rising Sun is on the team as well. A Japanese stuntman known by his hero name Sunburst was on the team but perished in Crisis on Infinite Earths. Finally, Ultimon, a hero dedicated to fighting giant monsters. Since its founding, the team has integrated some new members, and throughout history, big science action has saved Japan from many threats. The team might not be out as much anymore because after Final Crisis, the government confined the Super Squad to their base. We are about to get into the team that was originally published by Image Comics, later DC. The team is Wetworks. Wetworks is an actual term meaning work involving assassination, so you can probably guess the vibe. They are a covert operations team in the Wildstorm universe. Their leader is Jackson Dane. Technically, the original covert op team name was Team 7. The team was sent out to raid this cave, but the cave was already raided when they got there, except for these tubes filled with gold liquid. The team had a lot of remote controlled weapons on them that happened to start a countdown to detonate while they were inside. Then everything goes wrong all at once. The tubes get shot, the liquid gets on these people and surrounds them, and then the explosives go off. But it turns out the liquid acted like protective armor because it was symbiotes. Adding a sim to someone automatically makes them cooler, but you know what makes them even cooler? When they fight vampires. This team has been running across Eastern Europe making sure they can't remake Twilight. They had lost members along the way and even temporarily stopped because of it. They regrouped after the world cataclysm and were called to Utah, of all places. Turns out someone was trying to make demonite vampire hybrids. In the ensuing fight, the Sims all mutated and the Wetworks team started getting new powers. The new power played a key role in stopping the vampire hybrids from existing. Atomic Fallout seemed to be a popular origin story for heroes. The heroes of Lalor are no different. The heroes of Lalor are a team of 5 heroes. Their parents lived close enough to the site of the atomic fallout on their world that their genes were altered, resulting in their children all being born with powers. The kids were sent away from the planet and decided to come to Earth. They were tricked, bamboozled, lied to by this guy named Dr. Martin King. He made the young heroes think that the Legion of Superheroes were criminals. Why? So he could avenge his brother's death. Because this random group of people from outer space started attacking them, the Legion also thought the heroes of Lalor were the bad guys. They fought for a bit, but soon realized that they were both fighting with good intentions and became friends instead. Unfortunately, one of the Lalor members did pass away, Beast Boy. Not the one you're thinking of, a different guy. You know how I know the heroes of Lalor deserve better? They used one of the characters' name for another hero, and that guy is eons more popular. Their powers are even similar. The Lalor Beast Boy has the power to turn into any animal, and the more popular Beast Boy does the same thing. There were 5 heroes on the team. The others were Gas Girl, she can change her body into any gas. There is a Volvo Lad, he can make his body into any point in human evolution, so he can become an ape or the kind of man humanity can't even imagine yet. Life Last can create living creatures from inanimate objects, Beauty and the Beast core. And finally, Duplicate Boy, he can duplicate any hero's superpowers. Eventually, the surviving 4 make it back to their home planet. They even gained a new member, Splitter, or Arm Fall Off Boy.
Number 10. Dark Avengers. Okay. While I know the Dark Avengers may be seen to some as a group of supervillains, Norman Osborn was genuinely trying to create a replacement for a superhero team when he put them together. So though the team may be comprised of villains, I would still consider it a superhero team. While the Dark Avengers may not save the day like their more shiny and cordial counterparts, they are definitely more complex and interesting. The members of the team often have to work harder to save the day, working to overcome their own internal and moral struggles, wrestling with the type of person they want to be, and adapting to seeing themselves even as heroes. Number 9. Birds of Prey. DC's Birds of Prey are probably one of the most underrated team that DC has. While they are popular, it has taken quite a while for them to hit the mainstream. They appeared in the Batman animated series, had a short-lived TV show in the early 2000s, and have only now just got their own film. The saddest part of the film is that it won't even be exactly what you imagined if you're a huge fan of the comic series, subbing out Barbara Gordon's Oracle for Harley Quinn in terms of who appears to be acting as their leader on screen. The original core members for the team were Black Canary and Huntress, with Oracle acting as their leader. Gail Simone's inventive writing and all the strong girl power associated with the team is what puts this series in a league of its own. Although the team members often hold different morals or values, they manage to put them aside to work together and save the day, supporting one another. Girl power at its best. Number 8. Eternals. Why are the Eternals so cool? Because they help to build a bridge between the archetypal heroes of mythology and the modern superheroes we have today. The Eternals were created by Jack Kirby in 1976 as a group of superpowered and ancient beings who believed they were put on Earth by the Celestials to act as its defenders. Beyond being ancient and pretty much all-powerful, they have had an effect on the Earth's history by actually being the characters whom they share their names with from our own mythology. Circe, for example, is the same Circe who falls in love with and seduces Odysseus. Number 7. New Guardians. New Guardians is a team comprised of different colored lanterns, more specifically a representative from each color of lantern. The team originally banded together to take down the Black Lanterns, as multiple colors are required to defeat a Black Lantern, and all colors of the emotional spectrum are required to destroy Black Lanterns for good, by combining together to create white light, the light of creation. Whether it's the old team or the newest version of the New Guardians, which has their own comic series and was brought together by Kyle Rayner, both are able to accomplish impressive feats when combining their powers. Number 6. Defenders. I'm not talking about the television show. For this one, we are going straight to the comics and straight to the original Defenders lineup. This team was a team of happenstance brought together by Dr. Stephen Strange to defeat Yandroth. The team's inaugural members were Namor the Submariner, Hulk, and Silver Surfer. Definitely an impressive group to start. Other long-term members include Hellcat, Nighthawk, Valkyrie, Luke Cage, and Iron Fist. Although the original Defenders team shares some members with their TV counterpart, the premise felt much more orchestrated than the comics' ragtag crew of powerhouses. Number 5. Fantastic Four. Truly the heart at the center of Marvel. The Fantastic Four are believed to have come about at a time when the offices were actually just about ready to close due to financial strain. They saved Marvel, and for that reason alone, in the sense that simply their creation saved the day, and paved the way for teams like the Avengers who would come after them, they are one of the best teams that Marvel has. Yeah, did you know the Fantastic Four actually came first? They debuted in 1961, whereas the Avengers would not make their comic appearance until 1963. Without the Fantastic Four, we probably would not even have the Avengers. Fantastic Four was a labor of love for Jack Kirby and Stan Lee, the same team that brought us the Avengers, and created countless other well-loved Marvel characters. Fantastic Four were designed to push boundaries when it came to the idea of what a superhero was. Lee wanted them to be flawed, almost monstrous, which ultimately changed the story for a superhero. They didn't go out looking to protect humanity, they were just brilliant minds and explorers who were simply tasked with the responsibility after a tragic accident resulted in them getting superpowers. Number 4. Doom Patrol. The best thing about this group is that they are so outlandish. While Marvel may have the X-Men and Fantastic Four, this team truly stands in a league of their own. They also came out just slightly ahead of the X-Men, though I would argue the two definitely have enough differences to make them stand apart in the best of ways. Namely that Doom Patrol does not try to sugarcoat the bizarre. They truly embrace their weirdness, and it's glorious. This is especially highlighted during Grant Morrison's run in the series, whose style was then also incorporated into the DCEU show for Doom Patrol. In fact, while Marvel is good at consistently creating a dark, real world for their own superhero dramas thus far, I would say Doom Patrol is the DC show that proves why it just really works better for DC than Marvel. It's a show that is able to take the bizarre and tie it to reality by exploring how one would really deal with the scenarios that we see the team come up against. They are just as surprised as we are. Doom Patrol doesn't just force or paint on the idea of dark or strange. Doom Patrol is dark and strange. Number 3. Guardians of the Galaxy. Many casual superhero fans had not even heard about this team before they joined the MCU, it's true. Despite that the original comic book team were not quite as successful as the Avengers, I would still argue that in some areas even they are still better. Remember, better isn't all about money and success, and to add to that, the MCU Guardians are definitely better than MCU Avengers. Both versions of the Guardians are actually more out there, making it easier for their fans to be able to enjoy more outlandish stories without question. Let's not forget the original Guardians squad was comprised of supers from the future and a ton of different aliens. One of the members, Krugar, was even Sorcerer Supreme, and the original Alita was actually two entities sharing one body. Alita and Stakar Orgod were both Starhawk. A prime example of how crazy their stories were can be given by taking a look at the character of Starhawk. These step-siblings and later married couple took turns inhabiting the superpowered being while the other just chilled in limbo. The two ended up being married, had kids, but divorced after Stakar started hogging time as Starhawk. In terms of the MCU, Guardians is funnier and feels more likely to just take us anywhere. Its heroes are often more complex as they strive to do good, but also are sometimes just a band of space pirates. Also, Groot. Need I say more? Number 2. Teen Titans. Whether you're reading the comics or watching the original animated series Teen Titans, this group of superheroes are great. Mostly because of their bonds and how grounded they often are, while still being so fantastical and super. Especially when watching the animated series, I always found the problems they would deal with would have an underlying arc that would be kinda relatable. It's taking small problems, enlarging them to make them more entertaining, but still keeping an amount of honesty and relatability to keep you connected. Storytelling at its best. While the MCU may be known for having some of Hollywood's best talent around, the animated Teen Titans had some of the best voices, including Tara Strong, Ron Perlman, and Kevin Michael Richardson. Number 1. X-Men. Yeah, you probably knew I was going there if you know me. The X-Men have been around for just as long as the Avengers, but their stories have been ever more zany and interesting. Okay, so granted, some of the Avengers plots have been kinda zany, but usually more zany in a problematic way than the X-Men's plots, which are usually just weird as heck instead, and a lot more fun. Remember when Kitty Pryde got stuck in a giant bullet and was lost in space for years till Magneto pulled her back? Or when Jubilee became a vampire? And those two X-Men aren't even considered the mains of the main roster. The best thing about the X-Men is even if you've fallen off the bandwagon with them at some point, they always have something to bring you back into the fold. Hickman's newest X-Men series have done just that, reimagining the X-Men but still managing to continue the continuity. If you are behind on House of X or Powers of X, by the way, or if you've just left the X-Men behind, you need to come back and you need to read these new series. They are both brilliant. I'm so excited for all the new X-Men comics. Thank you so much for watching, Nerd Squad. I hope you enjoyed this list. To be fair, the Avengers are a fantastic superhero team, but it does feel unfair that they get so much attention. I get it, they're amazing, and they're stacked in terms of their gigantic roster, but there are some teams out there whose stories also deserve to be told, who have a more important story to share, and who also deserve some of that limelight. Number 10. Alpha Flight. This might be a controversial way to start off this list, but I truly do believe that Alpha Flight can be more powerful than the Avengers team, especially if we're talking about consistent teamwork, which the Avengers members sometimes struggle with due to, well, butting heads with each other. I mean, people on the Avengers have straight up killed their other teammates before. That is just a fact. I mean, I did a whole list about the amount of times Iron Man has been basically killed by his teammates, and after talking it over with Andrew, it seems like Alpha Flight also has a better system in place for making sure their team not only works smoothly, but also that members are well trained before even earning their place on the team due to the existence of both Beta Flight and Gamma Flight, which were initially used as training teams. Although Gamma Flight has kind of become something else in recent years, but yes. And friends, before I move on to our next spot on this list, if you love what we do here at Top 10 Nerd, why not show us you love us by giving this video a little like? Click that thumbs up. Number 9. Midnight Suns. Midnight Suns is basically Marvel's main magical team. At least currently that's who we got. Midnight Suns typically deal with threats that are more mystical or supernatural in nature. They were brought together initially by Doctor Strange to fight against Lilith and her small army of demonic offspring known as the Lilin, which I mean, of course this team would be brought together by Doctor Strange, right? Each member of the original team roster had interacted with the Lilin before, which was what tied them all together. Team members and leaders have included Doctor Strange, Wong, Blade, Morbius, Magic, Nico Minoru, Wolverine, Zoe Laveau, Kushala, Dr. Voodoo, Elsa Bloodstone, multiple Ghost Riders, Hannibal King, Hellstrom, Iron Fist, Man-Thing, Jennifer Kale, Ben Reilly, Victoria Montesi, and Werewolf by Night. It's a lot of supernatural and mystical people. Number 8. Web Warriors. The Web Warriors are a fantastic multiversal team that spun out of the events of Spider-Verse. But even before they existed in the comics, they and the Spider-Verse were inspired by the team-ups of multiversal Spider-Man in the 90s Spider-Man animated series. The Web Warriors were brought together by the multiversal threat of the Inheritors, who hunted down various alternate spider people, known as spider totems, across the Marvel multiverse. After they were defeated during the Spider-Verse event and the dust had settled, the Web Warriors were created to defend those worlds, who were left afterwards without a hero. Considering how powerful Peter Parker's Spider-Man is, I think you can understand how a team made up of various alternate versions of the character would be off the charts when it comes to their power level. I mean, Spider-Man himself is pretty crazy, like a team of Spider-Men. I wish we had an Avengers team that was actually just like different spider people. That could be pretty cool. Number 7. Fantastic Four. The Fantastic Four, despite being often smaller in number, though they have expanded beyond that number over the years, is still mightier, I'd say, than the Avengers. But I also feel like that's to be expected. After all, the FF were one of the first Marvel teams and are referred to fondly as Marvel's first family. So if anything, I consider them kind of like the first team. The Fantastic Four usually is made up of the 4 initial friends and relatives who are forever forever changed by exposure to cosmic rays during their first voyage out into space. At least that's the original origin story. The team has had countless heroes join their ranks here and there over the years. Well, you know Mr. Fantastic, Invisible Woman, Human Torch, and The Thing. Some other members on the FF roster have included the Hulk, Wolverine, Ghost Rider, Spider-Man, Storm, She-Hulk, Nova, Moon Girl, Devil Dinosaur, Crystal, and Black Panther, among others. Number 6. The Quiet Council. They aren't really a team of superheroes, but the title of this video is simply Marvel Teams more powerful than the Avengers, and the Quiet Council, I would consider them to be a team still. They're a team of folks in the Marvel universe. Granted, their team is more about protecting their power and their nation of Krakoa, but hey, I think it still counts. The Krakoan Quiet Council as such is composed of not just mutant superheroes, but mutant villains as well, as Krakoa is said to be a place for all mutants, where past misdeeds are forgiven in the name of creating a better tomorrow and a safe haven for all mutants. Current members include some of the most prominent, iconic, and powerful mutants in all of existence: Destiny, Hope Summers, Storm, Exodus, Professor X, Emma Frost, Mr. Sinister, Captain Kate Pryde, Mystique, and Sebastian Shaw. Formerly, the council also featured such additional powerhouses as Apocalypse, Magneto, and Jean Grey besides. Number 5. X-Men. I mean, of course I was going to put the X-Men on this list. Y'all know me, I'm a huge mutant fan. And the premier mutant team in the comics, of course, is the X-Men. I've also loved that over the years the X-Men has become more of a global team than just necessarily an American one. Unlike the Avengers, which has tended to remain mostly American in terms of their prominent team members throughout the years. I mean, most of the people on the Avengers tend to be American, not always, but I feel like the X-Men is a little bit more global in that regard. Although they do also have a lot of American members. I mean, based in New York. It's Marvel Comics. X-Men's current and previous lineup have also been exceptionally strong, and even the OG X-Men roster featured some mutants who are still considered the most powerful even today, and who are still around, of course, in the comics even today. The current roster features Cyclops, Firestar, Forge, Iceman, Havoc, Magic, Jean Grey, aka Marvel Girl, and Synch. Honestly, Synch is also alone just so amazing, and has taken the meaning of teamwork to another level, I think. Synch. Such an underrated character that now is getting his time in the spotlight. Number 4. Eternals. The Eternals are another team that deserve more love when it comes to the comics and when it comes to their powers. They're a team made up of literal immortal beings who are extremely resistant to dying, but up until recently anyways, even if they did die, they would actually quickly return to life thanks to the machine which rebuilds and resurrects them and is integrated, or was integrated, with the planet Earth, which is actually itself a living mechanism of sorts. The Eternals recently had a killer comic series written by Kieran Gillen that I would also highly recommend you check out. This is a series that will make you a fan if you weren't already. The Eternals all also possess a unique power comparable to a powerful ability of mutant villain Apocalypse. They can manipulate and alter their own molecular structure, having complete control of it, and some, like Circe, can even manipulate matter in general, be it organic or inorganic. Number 3. God Squad. The God Squad was brought together to combat another group of gods, the Skrull Pantheon. The team made their first appearance in Incredible Hercules issue 117, but while Hercules would become their leader, they were actually brought together by Athena's command. Although she didn't serve on the team, a bunch of other super powerful individuals and gods did. With Hercules leading, their roster over time also included Thor, Circe, the Silver Surfer, Ajax, Amadeus Cho, Snowbird, Mikaboshi, Adam, Galactus, and Venus. The God Squad only made a few appearances, but I still think they're a super cool team, and I'm still disappointed we didn't get to see them in Thor Love and Thunder. I was kinda hoping. God Squad, but alas. Number 2. The Annihilators. The Annihilators are an insane cosmic team, and you know how I feel about the cosmic world of Marvel. It's probably one of the most powerful areas. The Annihilators first appeared in Thanos Imperative Devastation issue number 1, and were created by Dan Abnett, Andy Lanning, and Miguel Sepulveda, during a time when the Guardians were getting a refresh by Abnett and Lanning in the comics. The team was actually inspired by Star-Lord himself, who had an idea for a truly badass team of galactic guardians, which Cosmo put into action. The team has featured Beta Ray Bill, Silver Surfer, Gladiator, Icon, Quasar, and Ronan the Accuser. At one point they used their powers to combine two suns together and prevented them from going supernova. So yeah, that's the power level that we're talking about. Number 1. the Defenders. I feel like the Defenders is a team that is often forgotten, but is randomly like one of the best superhero teams we've ever seen from Marvel. Perhaps this also has to do with the fact that none of its members ever really wanted to join or be there, at least not initially. The Defenders was the name given initially to the reluctant team up of the Hulk, Namor, and Doctor Strange, with Strange acting as the de facto leader of the team. Also, just having Doctor Strange as the leader of any team makes it pretty impressive, hence why the Midnight Suns are also on here. When it comes to Avengers teams, he tends to be more elusive, and even solo, he's known for being a powerhouse, so combine him with other powerhouses on a team, albeit ones, in different categories like the Hulk and Namor, and you can see how this team becomes seemingly unstoppable. In fact, I feel like the fact that each of these heroes, kind of has their own thing going on is what makes the Defenders so great. And they've also had a lot of other people join them throughout the years that have also been insane. As long as they all happen to be working together, the Defenders is a pretty great team. Which of course, especially in the beginning, wasn't always the case. But hey, they figured it out.